Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. Today is Monday, May 6th, 8:47 a.m. We are here. I am live in D.C., the capital of the United States of America. Very excited to be here. I'm going to be here pretty much this whole week. There's a Palantir event tomorrow that I will be going to with some other people, so it's going to be really excited. We have Palantir earnings today. We've got a lot to talk about going into Palantir earnings. That's going to be in about 4 or 5 hours, basically 6 hours at 3:30 p.m. We're going to be live today discussing everything in the world of Palantir. It's basically the Super Bowl for those who follow this channel. On top of that, you got Robinhood that right before I went live fell 8% at 8:43. It's now 8:47. And so Robinhood, who's that? Where did that voice come from? Is there a ghost here? Is someone here? Who's hold on. Arnaldo!
Hello. With your hello, everybody. I didn't realize how much you scream actually until.
It's a big scream.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you? Let's we have a guest here for the Market Open. So this is my brother from another mother from Italy. We met yesterday for the first time. First of all, before we get into it, what is your first impression of America?
Big, but quite rainy, and I prepared all my suitcase already. Like, come on, I'll be before in Spain. It will be super hot. I'll come here. It will be super hot as well. It's like I've only seen rain.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. How did you feel? And when you came, besides the weather, like, did it feel like the freedom and the guns was in your soul? You know, like as soon as you touched down, did you just want to like protect your Second Amendment as soon as you got here?
No.
Arny's gonna be with me here today. He's gonna be here for the next couple of days. We're in this Airbnb. It's actually booked a good Airbnb. There's no fucking parking though, so we have to park like 40 minutes away. But yeah, we're gonna be in DC. We're gonna be covering earnings together. It's gonna be super fun because I think this earnings is gonna be cool. We're gonna be able to cover it live, discuss everything going on, and then keep going from there. Arny will join us again on the stream in a little bit. Real quick, what do you think about Palantir earnings today?
Every earnings call is exciting. This one will be very exciting. Not maybe for the stock, but the business is like how it's called the moment of truth for the bootcamps. It's like, are these bootcamps converting or not? We are making so many bootcamps, like 5 bootcamps a day. Okay, but where's the essence?
Where's the money? All right. Arny will be back at 9:30 to do something very special for the stream. So you guys will see him in a bit. Arny, have you ever had pineapple pizza?
Not here.
Okay, good. Gene, you said buying pineapple pizza. I think pineapple pizza is a travesty in the United States. I think that whole thing is stupid. And I don't think pineapple deserves to be on pizza, but I'll let you try it. We'll see.
Do you want me to test a pineapple pizza here from the US?
We might have to test. Oh, you're from Italy though, so pizza is like, yeah, you guys know pizza.
That's a blasphemy.
That's what I was gonna say. It's a blasphemy. All right, I'm just kidding, Gene. I've never tried pineapple pizza though, but like I never liked the idea too much. All right, so we got a lot to talk about in the Market Open. We've got Palantir, we got Robinhood that literally fell 8% right before I went live. We'll talk about why. Dude, they were up at 1850, 1864. They were up like 5%, and then they're down 10% right now. Robinhood, and they got a notice by the SEC. They're down 3.4%. I actually think it's a good dip going into earnings. We'll see what happens. But we got to talk about Palantir. We got to talk about Robinhood. We got to talk about Tesla and Warren Buffett over the week. A ton of different stuff happened as well. Let me know if the audio is okay, guys. I'm just setting the mic down right there. Audio should be fine. I just don't really have my stand. But if the audio is not the best, let me know, and I'll switch the mic. I have something that I could wear that also could work. I lived in Milan for 6 months. They hated it. Okay. That makes sense. Races, you're muted. I hate you, Ray. I hate you so much. All right. Good audio. Cool. Okay. So I think let's start off over the weekend with some of the most exciting stuff, which was Warren Buffett and his annual shareholder meeting for Berkshire Hathaway. That's what I want to start off with. And then we'll discuss Palantir, and then we'll get into Robinhood. I know people are looking at the Robinhood price action. They might think it's like really breaking news. It's not. To me, it's the SEC being stupid about being the SEC. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but there's some other important stuff to cover. And then we'll get into Tesla as well, because there's a lot of stuff there. All right. So Buffett in the annual shareholder meeting. Let's discuss that. So I want to play a clip real quick of Buffett at the meeting. This is a pretty emotional clip. It even got me in the tearjerker, because this is what he says as he's transitioning from a question And notice who he mentions here. And, they say men don't cry. This will get men crying very easily. Here we go.
As being unfriendly to the idea of utilities being treated fairly. Charlie? Charlie, I'm so used to I had actually checked myself a couple times already, but I'll slip again.
So Warren Buffett essentially at the shareholder meeting, Berkshire does it every single year. This is the first time they've done it in 40 years without Charlie Munger. Usually Buffett and Munger are on the stage together. And I've grown to appreciate these meetings. I've watched a lot of the historical meetings from the past. And there's some really priceless moments in terms of people asking questions, people trying to get an understanding of what's going on, people just trying to peek into their minds. The thing that's unique about Buffett and Munger's relationship is they spent 50 years together, around more than 5 decades, a little bit more than that, making billions of dollars together for them and for their investors. And that's not an easy thing to do, making that much money for your investors and protecting your friendship, your ego along the way. Sometimes one person wants more credit. Sometimes one person feels that the other person's not pulling their weight. Buffett was known as the guy who, was representing Berkshire Hathaway, picking the stocks, being the guy who gets on the interviews, all that stuff. And Munger was the guy actually trying to figure out why we should invest in these companies. And that duopoly of them working together really created a unique dichotomy that allowed them to become Berkshire Hathaway. And the returns of Berkshire Hathaway obviously have been phenomenal. I think over the past even 5 years, Berkshire Hathaway is up about 80%. 91% over the past 5 years. So obviously they've done a very good job together. Now, there was a couple of things that were introduced from this shareholder meeting that I thought were really interesting to look at. One of the things was Buffett's perspectives on AI. So, one of the unique things he said is that he doesn't really believe in AI as a concept, or I think the quote was something along the lines of AI is very scamish. And I can understand that perspective because Buffett doesn't necessarily understand technology. He doesn't care about understanding technology. So that was one of the takeaways we got from the earnings call. Maybe that will change. Elon Musk had some interesting thoughts over the weekend on what Buffett should do in terms of the $200 billion he basically has in cash right now. And maybe Buffett chooses to not think AI is a scam and invest it in that emerging market, or maybe he feels it's just not really going to be as big as we all think. On top of that, Warren Buffett trimmed his Apple position. So this was the biggest news of the weekend. They trimmed how many shares? They trimmed from 905 to 790 million. So they went down 13% in terms of their total equity stake. And they still have a very large position, over $100 billion in Apple, but it has gone down from 905 million to 790 million. Now, I put up a post over the weekend that got a little bit of controversy on Twitter. So when Buffett was asked about this, he said, we have sold shares, and I would say that by the end of the year, it would be extremely likely that Apple is still the largest common stock holding we have right now. That was pretty much the extent of what he said. He also said some stuff about selling right now is advantageous for taxes. I don't buy any of that. I think whenever someone says, oh, I'm selling now because I want to, make money on taxes, that's just ridiculous, right? If a stock is compounding aggressively and you have a massive position, you don't sell just for taxes. You let the thing compound and you sell once the stock is done compounding, and then you pay your taxes. So people saying that, oh, he's selling because of taxes, I don't think is the best argument. Other people said right here, this is the current portfolio that he has, that, oh, it's 49% of the portfolio. So obviously Buffett wanted to decrease his holdings. I also am a bit skeptical on this claim. And the reason for that is Buffett bought Apple when it was a $500 billion company. Today, it's about $3 trillion. Why would you raise cash from your Apple stake when you could trim from other companies like Occidental, Chevron? They've had a good run with the energy prices going higher in the past couple of months, Coca-Cola, American Express, etc. I think the reason they've kept Apple at 49% for the past couple of years and now are deciding to trim is because obviously Apple is not compounding. Apple is trading at a 32 PE, given the 6% raise they got last week off of the $100 billion in buybacks. And it kind of feels like the buybacks were a way to deal with Buffett's selling. There was a good post on Twitter of someone talking about Apple's buybacks were kind of exit liquidity for Buffett. And I think that makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, if you know that one of your largest shareholders is about to sell stock, you need to create a situation where they don't tank the stock by selling hundreds of millions of shares. And if that, and to do that, you have to buy those shares, right? And I think Apple might have done the buybacks also to buy back Buffett shares. I think Buffett has started to decrease his holdings in Apple and raise cash. Now he's at 189 billion in cash, up from 167 billion. because he thinks one or two scenarios is happening or both. Number one, he thinks that Apple is fundamentally slowing down and that paying 32 times for earnings for a company that's not going to grow as much as they did last year. They're going to do less revenue this year than they did in 2022. That's just like, if you're sitting on a 5-6x, you probably should decrease some of your holdings at that point. If Apple was compounding 20% year over year, there's no way in hell I think Buffett would be selling, because it's so hard to keep buying, right? This is why Bill Ackman doesn't sell Chipotle, because Chipotle keeps compounding. So he keeps Chipotle a big part of his portfolio. Same thing, philosophy here with Buffett. Number two, he thinks a recession is on the way. And he didn't really talk about a recession being on the way at the annual shareholder letter. He more so mentioned that the situation with interest rates can get a little dicey. And obviously, we just don't know where interest rates are going to go. The yield curve are still inverted. But raising cash is not a bad thing to do. I mean, if you have $200 billion in cash, you can definitely do something very interesting with that money. So CMAX says he's rich because he takes his wins. That is also very true. And Vitaly says he's selling to lock in profit since it became too big in his portfolio. Yeah, I just disagree with this. This is the conventional take, and I guess this is the contrarian in me coming out. If Apple was compounding at 20% year over year, if they were growing like even Google was, I think at like 18%, I do not think he would be locking in profits, because the story would be very clear and the growth would be coming. And I mean, if he wanted to lock in profits, why did he not lock in profits for the past 2 years?
He's scared of this Coca-Cola.
Yeah, there you go, right? He's scared of this. Here's Coca-Cola. Arnie's just showing me a screen. Coca-Cola was $41 in 1998. Today, it's $62. Now, obviously, Buffett got into Coca-Cola very early and he gets the dividends, but one could make the argument if Apple does not bring up if they don't get the growth, they don't get the growth, right? And so maybe the idea is to take profits because they're not growing anymore versus it's too big of his portfolio, right? Like, he's not Cathie Wood. He doesn't have a 10% restriction where if Tesla, like, he can just let this thing keep growing. But I think Apple has shown. The other thing is also, I listened to the Apple's call. For those that were on the earnings call with me, they did not mention the Vision Pro at all. So, I mean, any resemblance of a new product that was going to have a super cycle of growth, it is gone, in my opinion. The Vision Pro is not happening from that perspective. The AI moat of Apple that Buffett really doesn't even care about. Remember, $45 billion out of the $90 billion of Apple's Q1 revenue was the iPhone. Buffett invested in 2016, if you listen to him talk about Apple, for the iPhone. It's a consumer product more than it is a tech product that he invested in. If that's going down the drain in terms of the upgrade cycles, it's not that exciting. There's no really AI product that's innovative. Then I think Buffett's going to take some profits here. And so we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening, but that's where I think it's going from there. So that's what Buffett said. Now, to touch on the Tesla point, I just want to bring this up, then we'll talk about Palantir. We got a lot to discuss in terms of the earnings preview. Elon Musk tweeted last night, and he said it is very obvious for Buffett to take a position in Apple. So Gali says, come on, Warren Buffett, sell your Apple and buy Tesla, which honestly, selling Apple at what, 180, 190 to buy Tesla at 180. Tesla is the same price that Buffett bought Apple at in terms of market cap, $500 billion back in 2016. It's not the craziest idea. I mean, the bull case for Tesla, although it's risky, it is very evident what the bull case is. I don't know what the bull case is for Apple outside of an AI phone that I'm definitely not upgrading to, because I'm just not paying $1,500 for Siri to, tell me when I can schedule my live streams, right? It's just not going to get that exciting. Elon says he should take a position in Tesla. It's an obvious move. Now, on top of that, what Elon said back in 2022 was this. I was at a lunch with Munger in 2009 where he told the whole table all the ways Tesla would fail. Made me quite sad, but I told him I agreed with all the reasons and that we would probably die, but it was worth trying anyway. This always makes me emotional when I see this quote, because it's the greatest innovator of our lifetime. You can have whatever beliefs you want about his political opinions and he tweets too much, whatever. All that shit at the end of the day doesn't matter. This guy in 2009 basically knew he was going to die building a tech company, and he still tried to do it. And he succeeded, and he's probably going to succeed over the next decade, making it even bigger than it is today. So Munger could have invested. And now, what was the valuation Munger could have invested at? Munger could have invested right here at a $200 million valuation in 2008 when Tesla was basically, on their last brink. They were about to go bankrupt. And then they avoided going bankrupt like right before Christmas in 2008. So Berkshire Hathaway had 128 billion in February 2023. Now they have 189 billion. If Munger invested in, if Munger and Buffett invested in 200 million in 2008, they would be sitting on a 2,500x since now. They didn't choose to do that. Instead, they invested in BYD. And so it does make you question a little bit. They got Apple right, which is like the staple of their portfolio. But had they just had a little bit of trust in like an American car manufacturer with a little bit of a crazy dude like Elon, who had already had a successful exit with PayPal, and they trusted Elon over the Chinese car companies, Berkshire Hathaway would have returned even more than it's. I mean, Berkshire Hathaway would have the stability of Kraft Heinz and Moody's and all that stuff, and then the innovation of Apple and Tesla. Now that didn't happen. So my question for the chat is, Buffett's probably not going to invest in Tesla, but what is the best reason you could come up with in the chat for how you could justify Buffett investing in Tesla? Because honestly, given how Buffett talks, I mean, the fact that he literally, kind of called AI a scam over the weekend, I don't think he's going to invest because of FSD. And if he doesn't invest because of FSD, then I don't really know what the real investment thesis is there. So let's see what people say in the chat, but I do want to see what people are thinking. Blake, I am in DC, for those that are asking. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. I am here. There's a Palantir event happening tomorrow, a conference. We're going to get to meet some interesting people that will be on Palantir Weekly later this week. So I think you guys will enjoy that. And we are here for the earnings, me and Arny. Mark says, Amit will be the first person to buy the new iPhone 16. They all say the same crap. Apple's marketing will get him to admit while he's sleeping, and he will pay full price. Watch and see. So two things. Number one, I got this iPhone 15 after 3 years, so I didn't upgrade since the iPhone 12, right? So this is my first upgrade in 3 years. Number two, I only paid $400 for this because with Verizon, I had a trade-in plan, so I only got it for $400 instead of the full like $1,100 that was the asking price. Dude, I mean, I don't want to say I'm like a cheap guy, but I don't spend money on products and services. I mean, like this is what I'm fucking wearing right now, dude. Wearing fucking Crocs. Like I don't spend money, dude. I'm not that type of guy, right? So, by the way, we had a McDonald's caramel latte today instead of Dunkin' Donuts. It was actually cheaper. It was $2 versus like the $5 I pay at Dunkin', but it didn't hit as well as the Dunkin' one hit. So I don't know if we can make that the daily one. But I'm not upgrading, dude, unless Siri can like jack me off or something. Like I'm just not like I'm not doing it, dude. Like Siri's got to be really advanced for me to get excited to pay $1,500 for an iPhone. So I think it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough to do it. But in general, I think some people might upgrade. China might upgrade because the upgrade cycles are better there, but I don't think the majority of people are going to do it. So we'll see how that plays out. What do we have here in the chat? No chance he wouldn't do it. He's not going to invest. If Tesla had a PE of 20 and solves FSD, but Buffett will likely not be around at the time. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll see if that plays out. Thought he said AI was more opportunities for scammer, not necessarily a scam itself. Yeah, he didn't say AI was literally a scam. He more so said that there's opportunities for people to create fake companies in AI, but it just lets you know his mindset. His mindset was not like, oh, this is the greatest innovation of our lifetime. His mindset was more, there's problems there. And as a result of that, I don't think that he is super excited in the context of AI either. You're waiting for your idea of the AI phone comes out. Yeah, my patented AI idea. Cool. Okay, so let's go to Tom Lee. He's on CNBC. We'll get to some of the comments in a second. Then we'll talk about Palantir. Let's get some macro updated thoughts, and then we'll keep going from there. But you guys can keep putting in the chat why you think Buffett would invest in Tesla, and I'll read over them. I just can't find the bull case for what he would see in them at this valuation. But if he does, I think the run that Tesla would have would be just astronomical. Here's Tom Lee, and then we'll get into Palantir earnings.
That feels investors are still too cautious. But he thinks that the fear of May or the sell in May and go away will turn into buy in May. Tom Lee is managing partner, head of research at Fundstrat Global Advisors, as well as a CNBC contributor. We'll never forget the call that you made, and it was one of many pretty good calls, but it was what the S&P was going to do near term based on inflation not being as bad as what was built into the market. And I think you're kind of returning to that theme, and I'd like to know why you think that. What do you know about inflation that the market doesn't seem to understand right now? You don't think we need to be as hawkish as we are?
Yes. A lot of it has to do with why CPI has remained stubbornly high. Powell talked about it, that there's this residual lag associated with housing. So even though home prices are stabilizing and rents are actually getting back to sort of traditional rates of growth, it's still reported in CPI at close to 6%. And then the second piece is auto insurance, is what Powell calls non-housing services. Auto insurance is rising at 21%. Now, a lot of that's because auto insurance rates are actually jumping, but that's not going to keep going 20% forever. Once that starts to normalize, then you can think about what median inflation is, which is running at 1.8%. So I think inflation's going to sort of cool pretty dramatically. I don't know when, but it'll be sometime in the second half of this year.
I think you, maybe a couple months ago, you weren't quite as bullish. I'm not sure what your reason, but you came on and said it might be tougher going. And we did have a series of inflation numbers that were hotter than people thought.
Yes,
Did we not?
we did. I mean, yes.
Yeah, and that you think that's not going to be the case as much from here.
That's right. I think going forward, a couple of things are better. One is like this job market isn't so red hot anymore. So I think the Fed's not on its heels as much about, inflation could fall. And then I think that the things I mentioned, housing and auto insurance, are going to start to cool. So inflation prints start to look better. And we know that we had a big reset in April. So I think it looks pretty good for now.
You must agree, I guess.
So right here, I think, Tom Lee's thesis is shelter will create disinflation. And some of the data that I've been seeing, and some of the data that's very obvious in terms of rents coming down and inventory going up, means that I think he's going to be right on this. And if he's not right, then it's going to be tough to get inflation to come down. If he's right, and he's been right historically on when the Fed is lagging on data, and Jerome Powell literally admitted that we're lagging on inflation data in the context of shelter, we should see CPI come down. If we take out shelter and energy, CPI is only at 1.67%. Inflation is only at 1.67% without shelter and energy. Now, obviously, those are the biggest ones. But if those come down, this 3.5 headline number is not going to stay at 3.5 for the coming months.
That the Fed right now is in restrictive territory, because I've been amazed at how the default position for Jay Powell has been for weeks and months that we need to cut eventually. He never even, it seems like the idea of hiking has never even crossed his mind, and he took it off the table again last week, basically. But it's weird to me, with the economy as strong as it was and inflation as sticky as it was, I don't know why that was his default position. I don't know why he just wasn't more asymmetric or symmetric. I don't know why he just didn't say the risks were symmetric both ways. He seems so sure. He's jonesing to cut rates. He really wants to, and the market believes him. And every time he says it, the market rallies and gets ahead of itself.
Yes. I mean, my sort of guess is I don't think the Fed's that comfortable with long-term rates at these levels. It is quite high. And as you know, it's putting a lot of pressure on regional banking. It's really hurting their balance sheet. The cost of money is quite high, especially relative to the rest of the world.
And you think we are restrictive?
Yeah, I think it's quite restrictive. Yeah,
you do. And you notice whenever we return to, okay, we're still doing cuts, and then Bitcoin goes. That's all it takes, right? The minute it looks like the printing presses are going back on, it goes. So you're still bullish. It's back to, I don't know.
Tom then goes on to say that, he's bullish on Bitcoin, and we already know that he's bullish on Bitcoin. Anthony says, these guys respect Tom so much. I love to see it. Yeah, it's really interesting. As a macroeconomist, you don't tend to get enough respect or any respect, because most people's macroeconomic takes, they end up not being true. They end up being misguided, or they don't have a ton of data to be able to create a comprehensive view of the economy that actually plays out. And Tom Lee was one of the few people from a macroeconomic perspective that was bullish in 2023 when no one was bullish, and it played out very well. So they definitely give him the respect he deserves. And as I've listened to Tom more and more and just tried to understand his thesis on the macro, I think it really comes down to, does he see in the data that inflation is coming down? And if he didn't see that, I don't think he would be bullish. But because he sees that inflation is coming down, it's easier to get more bullish about what's going on in the broader economy and for rate cuts coming down. I'll talk more about Bitcoin in a bit because we had some updates over the weekend. Let me get through this Robinhood news real quick, and then we'll move on from there. So Robinhood down 1.67% in the pre-market. Robinhood is at $17.60. Robinhood was at $18.64 this morning, but Robinhood now is, down 1%. It was down 8% actually in the morning versus up. So why is Robinhood down right now? They got a Wells notice from the SEC. Today, I found out what a Wells notice is. This is the fun part about being an investor. I was with Arny, and we were just talking. It was 8:43. And then I just checked my Robinhood, and I'm like, why is it down 10%? Like, what the fuck is going on? But Palantir, on the contrary, is up 5%. We'll talk about Palantir in just a bit. And I was like, what is this, dude? Well, I just saw it tank. And I'm like, what's going on? It was at 1680. It wasn't at 1755. And then I figure out, I learned today what a Wells notice is. So this is what a Wells notice is. Robinhood Crypto has received investigative subpoenas from the SEC regarding their cryptocurrency listings. They have made a preliminary determination to recommend that the SEC file an enforcement action, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. So, to me, I think this is a nothing burger, quite frankly. Maybe I'm wrong and this becomes a bigger issue, but the timing of it is so peculiar. Why are you doing it 2 days? You know, the SEC talks about manipulation and all this shit. How is the SEC not manipulating to some capacity by doing this 2 days before their earnings? Like, you couldn't wait after earnings. Does it have to be today? Like, it couldn't happen last week. I'm sure you guys knew over the weekend you guys decided to do this. So it's just so annoying sometimes how the financial system of America works. But to get deeper into this, I don't know what the issue the SEC has around Robinhood, because they already told them, hey, we're going to shut you guys down unless you delist Solana. They did that back in May of 2023. By the way, Solana was at, January 2023. Solana was at $10 at that time. If they had kept Solana on the platform, Solana is now at 150, Robinhood would have made so much juicy Solana crypto revenue that Coinbase basically had a monopoly on because Robinhood had to get rid of it. So Robinhood has complied with the SEC. They paid $104 million in Q3 of 2023. Otherwise, they would have been GAAP profitable by $19 million, but they had to pay the $100 million for other regulatory issues the SEC have with them. So they have been a good partner to the SEC. It's very weird that the SEC is now going after them. To give some context, the SEC sued Coinbase at $30 in February 2023. This is actually where I got scared of buying Coinbase, which obviously was a very stupid mistake because I thought, well, if the SEC is suing them, then they must be, in a lot of trouble. Coinbase is now $220. It went from 30 to 220, 7x, and the street has largely ignored their legal issues. But Robinhood is a brokerage. They operate with much tougher financial regulations, so we're going to have to see how they deal with this. As a result, I don't know if this dip gets eaten up. It seems like a nothing burger, and hopefully Robinhood makes a statement on this soon, and we get to see what they think from a clarity perspective. Are they going to fight them in court? Are they going to go through a legal battle? Are they going to just get rid of whatever cryptocurrencies that the SEC it says is illegal to be on the platform? I don't think they're going to have a problem with Bitcoin or Ethereum. Maybe some of the cryptos they have in Europe, because Robinhood has some more alternative meme coins on their European platform, but those aren't big enough, I think, for the SEC to get so upset. If it is, then get rid of those. I mean, I don't think the revenue we're getting from them is that substantial. But if that's the extent of what they have to do, delist a couple of stupid meme coins in Europe, this is a stupid dip, because we were at almost $19 in the morning, right? And I think the street will reflect on this dip being stupid. And if they have good earnings, maybe this is a good buy the dip opportunity. I also like that it's actually down going into earnings, because when it rises up before earnings, the idea for it to dump is so much easier versus if it takes a nice haircut going into earnings, the rally has more momentum, because then there's just more people that are chasing it after we have good results. And so we'll see what happens. Wong says, wait, why is Coinbase not affected? Well, this is what I've been trying to figure out. Why does Coinbase get to list Solana, but Robinhood doesn't? The only logic I can come to this conclusion, outside of Coinbase having, very sophisticated legal battles with the SEC, is that Robinhood is a brokerage. And if they fight the SEC might just get more aggressive, threaten them, shut down payment for order flow, do a bunch of these different things. And Hood's rather you know what? Our main business is stocks. It's not crypto. So we're just not even going to deal with this. We'll comply with you guys. But today, for them to get on their case again, it's just so weird. Why are they upset at them? Whereas Coinbase has fought this, and Coinbase is not a brokerage, so they don't have to really deal with the financial regulations of that as well. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's the issue on Robinhood. That's the update on Robinhood right now. Okay, let's talk about Palantir. We've got Palantir earnings at 3:30 p.m. I will be live with Arny today, and it's going to be very, very exciting to see what we've got going on in the world of Palantir. And we're going to discuss basically what I think is going to happen today. Noto did buy SoFi real quick. Let me just say that Noto did buy some SoFi. So Anthony Noto bought 30,000 shares of SoFi, which is nice to see. Let me just share that with you guys real quick for those that didn't know. So he bought 28,000 shares at $6.90. I had a feeling he was going to buy soon. It's good that he bought because I think shareholders are getting really fed up with the price action right now. I think the stock should be closer to $8-9, not $6.90. But Noto bought the dip. We'll see if he continues to buy the dip. And good to see. CEO buying stock is always a good sign. Always shows that he still has confidence in the business. Okay, let's talk about Palantir. Did you travel with the cowbell, dude? Do you know who I am? Do you think we could? You think we could leave this at home? No, of course. We had to bring the cowbell, and someone special will be ringing the cowbell in 14 minutes. Okay, my thoughts on Palantir earnings. First of all, let's look at the stock. The stock is up in the pre-market right now. Where is the stock at? The stock is at 24.31, so we're up 5% in the pre-market. Now, why are we pumping in the pre-market? I think we are only pumping, and we were up 3% on Friday, so we're basically up 8% in the past 2 trading days. I think we're up because people are buying before earnings. That does not mean earnings is going to go well. I want to make that very clear. Like even Robinhood, right? Robinhood was at $18.64. It doesn't mean earnings was going to go well. It just means there's excitement. Even SoFi did this, right? SoFi went to $8.20 before earnings, and then they ended up tanking. So when stocks go up before earnings, a few hours before earnings, it's because people are going in for an earnings play. And if the earnings play is successful, people will make money and then they will sell. If it's not successful, they're going to be bag holding or they're going to cut their losses. And so it's not necessarily the most bullish to see a stock go up before earnings, but it's also not bearish, right? It just means that people are excited for the company and that they think there might be some decent results that are reported. Now, our job as Palantir investors and not really traders is to figure out, will there be some decent results reported? In my opinion, I think we're going to have a blowout quarter. If you guys watched Palantir Weekly on Friday, we had Amir who walked us through some charts. He believes Palantir is going to be doing $660 million in revenue. The company is averaging, or they're estimating 612 to 615 million in revenue. Now, 660 would be a hell of a beat. I mean, that's 40 million more. If that happens, I think the street would react 10, 15% higher immediately, because that's the type of beat that I was thinking 620, 625, which is about a $10 million beat, which is reasonable. A $50 million beat, $45 million beat at 660. That's a pretty big deal. So if that happens, I think the revenue, I think the street will reward it from that perspective. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. This all hinges on one question, and that one question is simply going to be customer count. Boot camps have exploded for Palantir. And Bloomberg did a piece on their boot camps, 5 boot camps a day. So they've done over 400 boot camps this year. The street is expecting to get 650 million in top line revenue, 3 cents in earnings per share. Palantir has secured various deals over the past 90 days. I made a video yesterday talking about the 5 deals they got that were the most important. They got the Ukraine demining partnership, Oracle, Titan contract, Kohl's partnership, Bapco Energy. That's a deal a lot of people forgot about. They secured the types of deals you need a company to secure when it's trying to develop an S-curve. And they did all of this while maintaining their bootcamp strategy. That bootcamp strategy also allowing them to scale to India, Italy, Switzerland, the UK, internationally expanding their bootcamps. If Palantir has converted on their bootcamp strategy, if they've legitimately created the go-to-market strategy that is the premier go-to-market strategy for selling software around the world, then I think customer count is going to be gigantic. We had 497 customers last quarter in total. And we're going to do 2.6 billion off 497 customers, which is just kind of insane when you think about it. Snowflake is doing just a little bit more in terms of revenue, about 2.8 billion, and they have 8,000 customers. So it goes to show you how incredible the business is for people to actually care that deeply and spend that much on Palantir. If this metric right here, customer count, actually goes up, which you can see on my screen right here, it's at 35% year over year, 44% year over year customer count. If that goes up, I think the stock does well, man. I mean, that's my hypothetical guess around understanding this company. I mean, I think I've studied this company enough to understand how the street at least cares about it in the short term. And the street wanted GAAP profitability. We gave them GAAP profitability. The street wanted Carp to be a little less crazy on earnings calls, and Carp actually hasn't been less crazy on earnings calls, but Carp has had the numbers to justify his craziness, so the street's kind of been okay with it, right? And he's been able to curse and say whatever he wants on earnings call, and the street hasn't really cared. He couldn't get away with that in 2022 with 17% adjusted operating margins, but when you're at 34% adjusted operating margins, you can bang the table as much as you want. The street's going to get excited. We've been able to have commercial growth at 70% year over year. Right now, we were working off a small base, so it's not like it's the most amazing growth when you look at the base, but we're still guiding for 40%. And if we can keep that growing, as you can see right here, 77 million to 131 million, if we can get 40% off 131 million, then that's going to be exciting as well. So I believe that this all hinges down to one question, which is customer count. Nothing else really matters because all the other numbers are going to be corresponding off that customer count number. So let's do some math here. We did 440 boot camps. Let's just call it 500 just to like round up, right? 500 boot camps. If we convert 10% of those people into paying customers, which means in the past 90 days, they had to actually pay money, not just that they got on a pilot, because then they're not counted as a customer. We can't recognize any of their revenue. They have to pay in the trailing 12 months, which means in the past 90 days, they had to like sign an agreement to give Palantir money. If we converted 10%, that's 50 new customers. So we're going to be at about 547 customers. If we want to be a little bit more optimistic and say 25%, we would have converted 125 customers. On top of the 497 right now, we would have 622 customers. If we have 600 customers or more, I mean, I think the street's just going to be like, even if the revenue is not an aggressive beat, those customers, maybe they paid a couple million today, they're going to be paying tens of millions over the next few years. The Kohl's partnership in Australia, that was a 3-year deal. The demining partnership with Ukraine, that's a 10-year deal till 2033. The Oracle partnership, I don't know what the multi-year partnership is, but most likely, given the sophisticated nature of the distributed AI cloud that they're deploying to the EU sovereign countries and to their commercial entities, I would imagine that's a multi-year partnership. So the street knows that if we get these deals in, and if we get these customers, the revenue count will reflect that, and so will the GAAP profitability. The question is, can we get these customers? So I think the biggest thing, if you're a Palantir shareholder today, and what gets you from not selling, even if we run up to $30, let's say it happens, right? Goldilocks scenario runs up to $30. That's about 30-40% from here. And people that have $12 averages, $15 averages, even a $24 average, you're up a shit ton of money. Why do you not sell? Because it would be similar to selling some of these early companies before they became really good companies, just because they're giving you a sign that they're going to become a really good company one day. If Palantir is at $250, if you have an average of 30 or 20 or 15, it relatively doesn't matter if it's at $250 to $300. You won the trade. But keeping that average requires a level of sophistication and discipline. And in order to keep that average, and I don't blame anyone who takes profits. If you got to take profits, you got to take profits. In order to keep that average, you have to be able to say that that the company is performing. And I think if the boot camps are performing, if we see the customer count is exploding, then selling at $30 doesn't make sense, because that's not going to be stopping anytime soon. So that is my perspective on what we're going to see on Palantir. And if that ends up happening, I think it's going to be a very fun earnings. And I think the stock will reflect that. Now, could the stock sell off after that? Given the macro, we get a bad CPI? Sure. But if the stock sells off after we have a monster quarter, that is a blessing. That is something that we should be very happy for, because we get to buy cheaper. And I know a lot of people missed out buying below 20. I don't think we're going to go below 20, but if we stay stuck in 21, 22 and customer counts at 600 customers, top line revenue growth goes from 2.6 billion guided to maybe 2.8, 2.9 billion, which would be 25% year-over-year growth. That's a buying opportunity to me. And it would be very exciting as well. I also think top line revenue growth has to expand. Right now, Palantir's PE is a bit ridiculous. And if they're not going to continue to grow, the PE is going to get even more ridiculous. So right now we're guiding for 2.6 billion, 2.685. If we can guide that to 2.8, so do a couple hundred million more, we're going to be averaging more like 21% year-over-year growth versus 19%. If we can get to 2.7, 2.9, which I don't think is happening now, but if we show that guidance, I think the street's also going to like it, because that means revenue growth is going to be higher. Palantir is after hours. Yes, Palantir will be after hours. I'll be live with Arny at 3:30, and we'll be seeing what happens. So it's going to be very, very exciting. Again, the stock are up right now in the pre-market. I really think the stock is up because traders are getting involved. I don't think institutions are like, oh my God, we got to get into Palantir before this monster earnings. They usually wait until the monster earnings are done, which we saw, right? When it went from 16 to 24, that was when the toots really got excited. But right now, going from 23 to 24.50, I mean, it's just traders being like, okay, let's buy this. Let's see what happens. We'll flip it after earnings if it gets good. Timmy says, should we just keep buying and averaging up? Look, I think the question about averaging up is, what's your margin of safety? If you have a $7 average, as much as you want to protect that sexy $7 looking average, what's sexier to me is a position size that's, 10,000 shares versus 1,000 shares at $7. And if your 10,000 shares is at $15 versus $7 when the stock's at 200 in the next 10 years, if you believe that will happen, does it really matter? Not really, right? So for me, averaging up is a question of, do you have a healthy margin of safety where you feel the risk to reward makes sense? And only you can come to that conclusion at the end of the day. I personally do think this is a $200, $300 stock in the next 10 years, which is why, as much as I'm excited about earnings, this is the one stock that I'm so long. I was talking about this on Twitter over the weekend. I just don't care, because I think I understand the company well enough to have a perspective that if it tanks, I'll understand why it tanks, and I'll know if it's a good reason or bad reason. August 2022, bad reason when it tanked. And I could understand that, but at $8, the risk to reward was still substantive. If it tanks today and there's a bad reason for why it tanks, I'll be honest about it. If there's not that bad of a reason, or if it's like an irrational short-term reason, then maybe it's not too scary. And so I'm long. We'll see what happens. If it goes down, it goes down. If it goes up, it goes up. But I want to see the company perform. And if the company performs, then it's going to be really exciting to see how the stock price ultimately reflects that. Jacob says 1,000% admit it took me a while to understand that I had an average of $8, but I averaged up to $8.13. Yeah, dude, I think it makes sense. Even if you average up to $20 in the grand scheme of things, not right now, you probably don't need to be rushing for the hills to do that. But over the long term, if the stock's $200 and you have a $20 average, that's a 10x. And it's going to take time to get there. It's not going to happen overnight. But even Karp, right? Even Karp over the weekend, he was at that not the Reagan conference. He was at some conference in actually DC around here. And he said, I believe in 10 years, our company will be 10 to 20 times bigger from now. I think he genuinely believes that. I don't think he's saying that to pump the stock. I know people think, oh, he's just trying to pump his back. I genuinely think Karp believes Palantir. Otherwise, he would have sold the company to Oracle years ago, right? He wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now. He wouldn't be this involved at 55 years old as a CEO. Like, I think he actually thinks this company is going to $1 trillion one day, and it's going to be a fun ride to see if they can continue to execute over the long term. Entry to S&P 500. Yeah, I think that can happen this year. The reason why I would tell people this doesn't happen is because Palantir has the lowest institutional holdings out of all 500 companies in the S&P. Palantir 2438 right now. So if Palantir got it included today, they would have the second lowest institutional holdings at the 40-60 split they have, with retail at 60, institutions at 40, or institutions are like 38 today. And I don't think the S&P likes that. I think they want less volatility in the institutional holdings. Now, granted, there are some companies that have low institutional holdings in the S&P 500, so I don't know if it's the biggest concern to them, but that might be one of the concerns, which might make us wait till 2025. I do think the S&P 500 wants to be part of the trending companies, and if AI is a theme and Palantir puts up undeniable numbers today that proves they are an AI play, eventually the S&P is going to have to be like, well, why, do we not have this as part of the 500 most important companies in America? And, maybe that's another catalyst that gets the street excited as well. Never trust a man that wears a sweatshirt of a college he did not attend. Yeah, this is shout out to the Trojans who I had a friend who graduated from there back in like 2010, and he brought this sweater for me. And it was too big for me back then because I was a kid, but now it fits me. So I wear this every day. I think I might be going to California in June as well. So maybe I'll get to see USC when I get there. What time is earnings for Palantir? 3:30. 3:30 we'll have earnings for Palantir, and we'll be live. All right, so we have about 2 minutes until earnings, and then until the market open. Let's look at a couple other stocks before we get into it. Nvidia's up 0.64%. Amazon's flat on the day. SoFi, Anthony Noto bought some shares. That's why it's up 1.44%. S&P 500. Wow. I actually didn't look at this all morning. It's up 0.5%. It was up 1.24% last week. S&P's at 513. Incredible. Most analysts thought S&P would maybe get to 500 by the end of the year. We're at 513 right now. Absolutely nice to see. GameStop's down 9%. GameStop was up 30% on Friday, and I had no idea why. This company does not even do an earnings call. It's like legit insane. But it seems like a short squeeze situation is happening again with GameStop. They're down 9% right now. It seems like people are taking profits, but GameStop was up 30% over the weekend. Bitcoin, we'll talk about Bitcoin. There's some bullish news that came out on Friday over Bitcoin, and we'll discuss that. Bitcoin right now is at 56,000. Now it's at 63,000. So we'll discuss Bitcoin after the market open. But this one had a nice little rally, and Google right here at 167 as well on the day. Does Palantir earnings start before the market close, or does your broadcast cover? Yeah, we'll start at 3:30. They'll give results at like 4 p.m. So we'll do a 30-minute preview, and then at 4 o'clock we will have the official numbers of Palantir. Okay, we have a special guest that's going to be ringing the bell for me today. This is a first time on Palantir Weekly. It feels like Palantir Weekly on the market open, where someone else actually rings the bell. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:30 a.m. Arny, you have to say wake your ass up after you do it. The stock market is now open.
Wake your ass up. The stock market is now open.
There we go, baby. Wake your ass up. Here we go. The stock market is now open. Palantir opens up $24.22 as soon as we get them open. 3.9% on the day. Not bad. We'll see how this holds up over the coming hours. Palantir 24.25 up 3.38%. Nvidia 892, SoFi 705, Apple 182. We'll talk more about Apple and Buffett and what Buffett said about Apple over the next coming minutes as we discuss Apple. But Apple right here down just a little bit based on maybe the Buffett sell. S&P 513, Carvana 124. They had a phenomenal earnings. They were up 40%. They're up another 2% in the pre-market here today. Chipotle's up a little bit. MicroStrategy up 3.74% because Bitcoin was up. Let's check on Robinhood again. They had that annoying SEC notice. They're down 0.84%. So Robinhood, again, this nasty red candle, they were at $16.26 from $18.65. So they fell pretty aggressively. Now they're at $17.82. So still red on the day. They were green, but they are recovering from that Wells notice they got from the SEC. Again, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but that's something investors have to think about right now. SoFi 712, Nvidia 891, Palantir 24.23. What else do we have? Let's go to the Mag 7, see what we've got today. We've got Apple red, Microsoft green, Meta green, Google red, Amazon red, Nvidia green, and then Tesla Wow, Tesla's up 2% on the day. Again, over the weekend, Elon Musk did say Buffett should initiate a position in Tesla. Most of the people in the chat here said that Buffett will only do that if Tesla's PE goes down or if he really believes in FSD. Tesla's PE is not going down. Even at 140, the PE was a bit up there. Now at 180, the PE is still up there. And FSD, I don't think Buffett is going to see the long-term vision of it. He's just not that type of guy. So it doesn't seem like Buffett would invest in Tesla. But if he does, if that's one of his last real big investments, I think it would just be one of the most amazing things he could do. Because I do think in 10 years, we all know how the story of Tesla is going to play out. Buffett probably knows that as well, but it would be a slap in the face to every investor that follows him, or every value investor that follows him, if he were to invest in Tesla, because all of them like despise Tesla. They're in the camp of Gordon Johnson that it should be worth $23. So it would be a real chess move if he does that. And I wonder if he actually does that as one of his last moves. He probably won't, but it would be exciting if he does. Bitcoin. Okay, let's talk quickly about Bitcoin. Bitcoin at 63,588. Why is Bitcoin rallying from 57 to 63,000? Well, one piece of news we got over the weekend, which was very, very excited. Palantir's pumping. Where's Palantir? Palantir 2418. Well, it's still up 3%. Yeah, it's still down from like 2430 in the pre-market. So we'll see if it keeps getting up there. But right now, Palantir 241020. This is the only thing you need to know about Bitcoin for why it's up right now. Grayscale finally had a positive inflow day. Grayscale has been selling the crap out of Bitcoin, on average selling about $150 million of red every single day. Right now it's at 63 million, dude. Like, I mean, 63 million of inflows. So maybe Bitcoin has bottomed from the Grayscale selling. And if it's green again, we will have 2 consecutive days after 71 red days of Grayscale selling. You can see right here the inflows on Friday, 60 million, 100 million, 12 million, 33 million, 28 million. I mean, just massive inflows. Kind of seems like more institutional inflows than retail inflows. And then Grayscale not selling. Maybe at 57,000, the dip got so juicy that people got excited about Bitcoin and they started buying a little bit more. And that's when we got Bitcoin green. That also helped Robinhood get a little bit green, because obviously if Bitcoin went green, Robinhood goes green. Robinhood green as well right now, 1796. Again, guys, I think the Wells notice, I don't want to downplay it because I'm not as familiar with SEC legal case law and what happens if they sue you and shit. I'm just looking at Coinbase as a proxy. Robinhood now back to $18. Coinbase got sued and the stock went up 7x because the market did not care. Robinhood is in a much tougher situation because they deal with actual equities, not just crypto. So I don't think they can just get away with it like Coinbase has. But I don't think Robinhood wouldn't comply. Like if the SEC is like, hey, you have to get rid of this coin, as long as it's not Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Dogecoin, which I'm sure it's not because the SEC hasn't had a problem with those, then Robinhood will be like, okay, fine, let's do it. We'll get rid of dog with hat or some shit, right? Like we'll get rid of the latest meme coin in the EU that's available for trading. And I think this will be resolved. And if that's the case, this is literally a nothing burger, and the stock, that'll be a positive catalyst as soon as the SEC has resolved that with Robinhood, which I think also will be exciting as well. And we should see some momentum there. All right, Palantir at 2412 right now. Not bad. Arny, get back on stream. I want to get some of your thoughts on what's going on in the world of Palantir and what you think. Let's get a nice preview from Arny here, and then we'll discuss some other stuff that's going on in the market. Okay, Arny, so first question I have for you is, what do you feel about the customer count and the bootcamp strategy, and do you think that's actually going to be in a positive upwards direction?
Well, I think the street is just realizing now what bootcamps are. Therefore, the implications. Remember, Mariana, not the last call, but the previous one, was already shocked. Hey, how are you dropping these margins? And bootcamps is like the key magic word. You get a lot more customers, easier and cheaper, which means more money, more opportunity to spend. And this creates a fabulous feedback loop. Now, you know what's even more interesting is I was just looking again the numbers, and the expectations now, well, the guidance is for $614 million.
Yep.
But do you know, like last quarter, how many revenues were where?
608.
So
it'd be a 1% quarter-over-quarter growth.
Isn't it that too little?
It's fucking sandbags, dude. There is sand in the bag, and they gave us the sandbag. And the question is, do they let the sand out of the bag today and let loose?
I mean, they did. Maybe I'm wrong, but did they talk about some like extraordinary revenues from last quarter? No. So it's like if they just progress and get like at least 20 million, that's already a bit. They just need like 10 million to beat the revenue,
yeah,
which is nothing quarter on quarter.
if they annualize some of the NHS revenue or the Titan revenue, I mean, it's not going to be hard to.
And Titan should
that.
start kicking in now.
Yep.
Also the NHS. So it's like there are a lot of stuff kicking in these months, these quarters. Someone is fooling us.
So Dan Ives says, Palantir reports a key quarter after the bell as we expect another solid quarter with upside driven by U.S. commercial strength. The Big Street will be focusing on AIP customer conversion, U.S. commercial strength momentum, and the trajectory of larger deals in the pipeline. So the institutional analysts like Dan Ives, guys, are concerned about the same shit me and Arny are concerned about, which is AIP customer conversion. I mean, at the end of the day, if customer count goes up, it's going to do well. Now, Arny, Dan Ives has a $35 price target on Palantir. What is your fair value for Palantir, and what becomes fair value if we get 600 customers today?
Well, with the information we have right now, it's hard to say it is worth like 30 or more, I would say, because that would put the multiples in a high range. Yet it really depends now on the growth. Like what is worth for a 20% growth is very different from a sustained 30% growth. So it's like, as of the numbers, as of today, in this 20% range, this valuation of $25 or so is, I would say, okay. But if growth truly accelerates, the interest for AI increases, Palantir shows evidence of being able to transform this interest for AI into actual revenues, and the market is willing to pay for that, there is a boost in revenue growth. 30% CAGR already at that scale would be more than unique. Like
it means we're going to the fucking moon. That's what it means.
Yeah, it means like I think once you reach that, you start reaching escape velocity. So it's like if Palantir truly accelerates, the true value goes way beyond 30 under that if. So that's why it is important. Yes, the customer count, but is really to start seeing an acceleration. And as also you mentioned at the last Palantir Weekly, we speak with a company that a couple of years ago actually was growing that much. So the engine is there. The deals are emerging. And I think our patience is finally this close to get rewarded. Will it be?
I think that's the question. So how do you expect Karp to talk on the call? Palantir right here, 24.44, nice little pump we're seeing in the as soon as the market opens. Do you think Karp is going to be braggadocious? Do you think he's going to be banging on the table? Do you think he's going to have the momentum built in? He's done some public appearances where he seems very excited. How do you think Karp's going to address this earnings call?
Well, we had yesterday night, middle of the night, this conversation. And why should Karp downplay right now? Like once you know you have something valuable, something that is valuable for you, for your company, but more importantly, for your customers. And we are only limitation now is getting known. Why should you be shy? Why shouldn't you, hey, man, guys, we are going to take it all. Like, I think we will see a sort of reiteration of Karp saying we take the whole market. But maybe at this stage, I think Karp will try to explain better what it means, because we take the whole market is like too generic.
Yep.
They don't want really to take the entire AI market. They don't want to start making 100,000 models. It's like maybe they will make a model one day because it would be convenient for Palantir clients directly to have a model developed by Palantir, which is just more cost effective. But they're not willing to, now we spend 30 billion to build NVIDIA chips to make a model and hope that doesn't become a commodity. I think in this earnings call, Palantir management will try to make it clear exactly what they do in AI, because that's the issue. For instance, remember Rishi is like, this is not a generative AI play. Where's the model? Palantir is just, nice infrastructure, but hey, that infrastructure is actually what matters. The model is useless without a proper infrastructure.
Without the proper infrastructure, 100%. We got Tesla here at 186, Palantir at 24.44, up 4%, Robinhood up 1.23%, $18.18. I want to watch a quick clip, guys. This is a minute 30 of Karp talking about boot camps back in the Q4 call. And then I want to get Arny's thoughts on what he believes the boot camp strategy will play out like this quarter as well. Here's Karp in the last earnings call talking about boot camps.
Built on the back of a 20-year assumption that software would define our reality. The winners would be those that understood software, rejecting linear, narrow, sales-driven software, Frankenstein monster infrastructures that have been so historically popular for investment in Silicon Valley, rejecting sophism as not only an approach to business, meaning I only say what I believe if it doesn't matter, or I never say what I believe. Those assumptions have seeped into our products, whether they're a military product or their Foundry or Ontology or AIP. They also, by the way, for those listening who think our strategy is crazy, many of your best people are applying to Palantir now. So while we may be crazy, we are being bombarded by people who want to work at this company. Bombarded. I cannot, a day does not go by where I'm not getting a call, an email, 50 attempts to get into our company. We are white hot in recruiting.
The reason I love Karp talking like that, and it shows you the contrast between him and other CEOs, he says shit and he means it. And the street's like, all right, if the CEO's that excited, then maybe we have to take him seriously. How do you think Karp's going to talk about potential employees trying to join the company? And what do you think that means for stock-based compensation and your general thoughts about the talent Palantir gets?
Isn't it paradoxically that Karp is so clear, like he looks weird and the street doesn't believe him while he's actually the one who speaks the truth.
Yep.
How employees will react? Like, I think the fact that now Palantir is in a position of strength means that Palantir is not desperate any longer to acquire not only clients, but also employees. Imagine when you are a tiny little startup, even if you know you are important, but nobody knows you or really want to work with you, your pricing power to get an employee is not that much.
It's difficult. It's very difficult to get people to care about you.
But now you are the leader in defense. And that position is very clear. Like a Karp being very outspoken with, well, you want to support Palestine or all stuff? Okay. Exchange program sponsored by Karp, if you truly believe what you say.
Right.
That creates a natural interest into people who have these ideas to actually join. So rather being a Palantir, hey, please come, we promise you we are a good company, you'll have fun, you'll be paid well. It's like, now people want to join because are we aligned, very aligned in terms of the mentality of the company, but also because they're starting to see, holy shish, this company is actually delivering something that is real for AI. Like, I think a couple of years ago, it was unthinkable. It was not clear for all the snowflakes engineers of Silicon Valley why Palantir had something that was better. But now, once you start comparing, okay, what's a model? What's the output of a model? And what is the real output you can bring with AAP? And now
the value becomes obvious. Yeah.
With AAP now, you have like 200 cases that are product. But imagine how many other use cases that are not products yet.
Right. I think that's the big thing. And it does help that NVIDIA's pumping. NVIDIA above $900 today. I mean, again, NVIDIA is not literally tied proportionally to Palantir, but if the AI market is hot. And here's the other thing. I was talking to Chris Patel, our favorite Palantir bear, about this subject. The reason Chris closed his puts, which it's a good thing he closed his puts at $21 versus at 24 because he'd be underwater right now, is because when he saw Google and Microsoft's quarter, guys, it showed that clients are willing to spend a shit ton of money on AI. And even though Palantir is not getting Google or Microsoft type of money, they're still in the AI space. And if they're going to get a derivative effect of that, then that's going to be very beneficial for Palantir. NEO right now up 7.2%. Shout out to those who got NEO at 380. I mean, I was scared shitless of touching NEO at 380. Chinese company, Tesla's having problems. NEO might have problems, but it was trading at cash. And when a company tends to trade at cash, if the company's not going bankrupt, the street takes a chance on it. Rivian, also, wow, Rivian at 1038. Rivian at 830 was trading below cash. So if you got Rivian or NEO at the bottom when it was trading at cash, shout out to you. Again, those are risky plays, so you deserve to make some money if you made some money on those. Robinhood 1807, Palantir 2447, NVIDIA 904. Here's the clip of Karp talking about boot camps. The other clip I just played was about the talent. Here's the bootcamp clip, and then we'll get Arny's thoughts on some other questions going into earnings as well. Here we go.
It's almost inconceivable to do that many contracts given the way our product used to be. And so what you see is a convergence of our product being easier to use, an augmentation of its charisma, both driven by developments in AI, large language models, which make the product approachable Foundry to the broader market. You also see just this enormous demand and our ability to meet that demand with a new piloting approach that we call bootcamp. So we went 2 years ago, we did 92 pilots. And last year, really mostly the second half of the year, we did over 500 boot camps. I go around the country now telling CEOs, CTOs, and really whoever has $1 million to buy our product and transform their enterprise, take everything you've done in AI since you started, put your best people on it, and we're going to show up at any time you want, and we're going to run your data at a boot camp for 10 hours. And then you compare your self-pleasuring to our operationally relevant, commercially valuable, critical to your enterprise results. Our 10 hours, your 10 months. Any products you want, any vendor you want, any hyperscaler you want, you pick them, we'll show up.
And real quick, right after this clip, before we get Arny's thoughts, let me play this 30-second clip as well. This is Karp talking about where he thinks the company can go in terms of valuation.
84% of the top 50 startup of tech people now. This is basically pre-AIP, pre-AI. What do you think is going to happen? Like, my company is worth between 35 and $40 billion. I'm pretty optimistic we're going to continue to grow and get bigger. Okay, at $60 billion, you are on that list. Okay, it's very likely we'll be on that list.
Even a CEO saying that he's optimistic that they're going to grow. I mean, we're like, you know, there's other companies, CEOs that are like so afraid to like even utter the word that, oh, I think we can grow because they're so afraid of lawyers and all this stuff. And I get it. Karp is a founder. He doesn't care about everything else. He cares about what he can do to propel this company forward. And if he's optimistic, he's not going to sugarcoat it and hide behind fancy language. He's going to say, hey, I think we can grow. And just that alone, I think resonates with shareholders. So Arny, what are your thoughts on that bootcamp strategy, not only converting to Palantir in terms of the customer count, as he was saying, in terms of 500 bootcamps even last year, now they've done 500 the first half of the year, but also what that means for the valuation? I guess the question here is, if it runs to $30, would you consider selling after earnings?
It always depends on how it gets there and why. Because let's say there are no signs of improvement and the stock goes effectively to $30 just on hype, that it would be like a very different setting from, let's say, rather than 17% growth expected, we have like 24. And we just mentioned previously that to get there in terms of $1 million revenues from quarter on quarter is literally almost nothing, like $8-10 million. If we assume that is true, like we can consider a bootcamp like a pilot, and we're running 5 pilots per day, and we're making bootcamps for a long time already from the new customers. It is not insane to think, oh, we got like $20 million just from new customers.
Yep.
And well, it is easier maybe to show this. This picture shows the deals on above 1 million, 5 million, 10 million. And we see that since AAP launch, the number of deals of 1 million is skyrocketing.
It's gone up, baby.
So that's essentially the essence. You make a bootcamp. Whoa! In a couple of days, you test the product. You see, oh, it works. Maybe there are like 2 months just to try to make like a proper pilot. And after that, you say, okay, let's spend 1 million to start. And then the more you have fun building, the more you actually expand the usage.
So do you think this 103 deals, do you think this is going to expand? Right here?
I think this is the metric that will surprise us. Because it was like last quarter, it was 80, and we went straight to 103.
Right.
And we need to consider that deals is actually a delayed effect of the bootcamps. And bootcamps were like third quarter around 200, fourth quarter around 300, and now we are at running at a capacity of like 1,200 annualized. So it's like the pace of bootcamps is skyrocketing, which means the number of pilots is skyrocketing. So the options open to get $1 million deal at least.
It goes up. It goes up.
It's go up.
Yep. And at this stage, again, Palantir at this stage, if they come up with 140, 150 deals at 1 million, that's not a lot of money. That's like 150 million bucks, right? But it's growth, and the street cares about future growth. Like Tesla, what did Elon do around FSD? He didn't really make progress on it. He just said, hey, we think it's going to grow pretty soon. And the street's like, all right, we're going to price that in forward. And it goes from 140 to 190. So I think a lot of this really is about pricing it in for the future.
I think that's the difference. Tesla has moved thanks to hype on something that there will be there, but who knows when.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Well, AI revenues, actually AI profits, which is even more juicy, is here. Like Palantir has already been doing this for a year now. So Palantir so far is the only company that is very, very focused on AI, which is profitable and also close to enter the S&P 500. Now, just a point of reference, what you mentioned previously, big techs have shown effects, especially in their cloud part, from the interest in AI. And that emerged also on a company that I like to track very closely, which is ServiceNow. ServiceNow, per se, is not really a competitor with Palantir, but is really exposed to the same dynamics. And they are very focused now into building a platform to optimize workflows. So there is like a convergence, competition there, but it's only one part. And ServiceNow said where our AI product is the fastest product we have ever sold. And
real quick, this is important, right? Because if major Fortune 500 CEOs are saying, hey, like this thing is real, it's actually growing, then you can't deny when Karp says that they have insatiable demand. Like he's not bullshitting. Like it has to be real. The question is how much do they convert? But he's definitely correct on the argument that the world wants AI.
So the ServiceNow CEO is excited. They see like numbers moving. And then you look at, okay, but what is the AI for ServiceNow? Essentially, a chat. So for workflows, you have a chat that helps you being faster. But we know that Palantir's AI, it has a chat component, but that's like a tiny little bit compared with the true power of the AI. So, and for instance, how many companies have you heard so far talking about an orchestration engine to leverage multiple LLMs? If you look at the presentation from Sequoia, like the Smart Venture Capital, they know that the trajectory is we start from the AI model, but at the end of the day, you will have multiple LLM models, and then you will have agents. It's like, yes, but Palantir is already helping companies building agents for whatever use case. So it's like Palantir is already at the goal. People are super hyped for the stage one.
Right.
And people are not really seeing that. Let's see that.
Let me ask you a question here. 3.7 billion in cash. Do you think Palantir today announces a further authorization of another $1 billion in buybacks? So not saying they're going to do $1 billion in buybacks, but they say, hey, the board of directors have authorized us to do 2 billion in buybacks versus 1 billion. That's the first question. Or do you think they actually bought back some of their stock in the past 90 days? Maybe they spent 250 million out of the 1 billion. What do you think they announced in regards to their cash pile?
I don't think they will announce a further buyback because it would be, in my view, no sensical to announce a further buyback when you haven't already started.
Because we all know the buybacks are bullshit. Like, we all know they're not doing the buybacks, but it gets the Wall Street people excited that, oh, well, the company could buy. Like, look what they did to Apple. So I think if Palantir were to say, hey, we can do even more, but they never do it, they're basically like toying with Wall Street. It's like, hey, we'll play your stupid little game just so you guys are happy, but like, we're not going to spend this money.
With Apple, the buyback announcement has had a lot of effect because Apple is the stock that buybacked the most into the entire history of the US stock market. Like, I saw a picture that the buyback Apple has done up to now already are bigger than 400, the biggest for like the least big 400 companies in the S&P 500. It's like Apple alone on the buybacks is made so much money to move that is embarrassing. With Palantir, it's like, if the stock would be still in the $15 range, I would think it would be stupid at this point not to buy back.
Right.
At this point, I think is kind of irrelevant if done cautiously, but it could be a tool that the management could give if they really want to increase the interest. They could announce something similar to Snowflake, where essentially the buyback is not really to offset the share count, is more to stabilize it. Because so far people are quite annoyed to see, oh yes, you generate free cash flow on one side, but then after the stock-based compensation, there is not much left, and that creates a dilution. Now, I personally think what would make sense is just starting a little bit. We have a 1 billion authorization. Let's make $100 million in buyback just to learn how it works. Because a buyback is essentially an investment. We need to think of the company being like a capital allocator, full cash, where it can only invest into its own company. You don't want to go YOLO into a price that maybe is not that appealing. On the other hand, if the price is very appealing, you want to deploy a lot of cash into that. If it is not, maybe what you can do is just dollar average a little bit, but this way you get confident. Like Apple was able to make magics because it has been doing that for a long time, and they learned also how to buy back, which is not to be taken for granted. Like Meta, before the crash, when it was at 300, a couple of years ago, they were buybacking, and actually quite heavily. And then, and then at the bottom, they didn't. Only after it recovered, they started buybacking again. It's like
too risky. Yeah.
So that's why
they get paper hands just like us. Yeah. Palantir right here up a nice 6.37% on the day. Guys, in terms of the mic, the reason you're hearing a little bit of an echo is because I'm not in my usual studio. So like this Airbnb, it's like high ceilings right here. So sorry about that. But 2482, not bad at all. If you have any questions in the chat for Arny in particular about Palantir, anything else, just put it in the chat and he'll answer them here. Really exciting to see some price action here. I want to show this clip on Karp talking from the Q3 earnings call about what his philosophy is on product differentiation, and then we'll keep going from there.
My view of what we should do is build products that are so good that the competition stops competing, whether that's in commercial or on the battlefield. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we're seeing in AIP. And I haven't seen something like this since PG, which was our first anti-terror product. No one bothers even, like currently PG is blocked in Germany. That's because somebody doesn't, whatever. It's just like they're waiting for a terror attack so the AfD can win.
And dude, this was freaking prophetic, dude. We posted this on Daily Palantir November 7th. The biggest German media publication came out 2 weeks ago. I did a video on my channel for those that watched it called Germany Wants Palantir Back. And they're saying, hey, we're having terrorist attacks. We're having more threats. We need something and we don't have anything. And maybe we should get Palantir. It is absolutely prophetic what he's saying right here.
It's like insane. So any case, no one's bothered saying we should build another PG. You can't build it. So you can just opt to not have the product. There'll be people who do that. And that's the aspiration for every single one of our products. And that's what I see in AIP.
Okay, so I want to say something about this real quick, and then I'll get Arny's perspective. I think in life, the way people win is when you have an undeniable moat around the product or service you have built that you are so confident about, like just so, one could call it arrogant or cocky, but Karp is not arrogant or cocky. He's confident, even if it feels on first impression it's arrogant or cocky. But when you dive deeper, it's just oozing with real confidence. If you have real confidence in life about a product or service, whether it's the content you put out into the world, whether it's, you're a cowbell company and you built the best cowbell and no one's going to buy anyone else's cowbells, whether you do the best Palantir analysis in terms of writing PalantirBullets.com. Make sure you subscribe to Arny. 2,000 people here. You definitely got to check out PalantirBullets.com if you're not subscribed to his newsletter for free. If you do the best you can do, it's very hard to be denied by society. And I think the reason I love investing in Karp, the reason I'm just ultra long, Palantir right now, 24.75, is because he actually believes, I do not think you can manufacture his belief and his confidence that Palantir is the best product in the world. And it's proven by the numbers, not just the growth numbers. They have not done an acquisition since 2016. They have innovated for the past 10 years internally. They released AIP within a month of ChatGPT becoming mainstream. When you have when you've got the juice, you've got to drink it, is what I'm trying to say. What are your thoughts, Arny, on Karp's confidence and his product focus over, sales focus or anything else that other CEOs focus on?
Well, you can fake confidence, but only for a limited period of time. You can talk bluntly, or you can be like that. Only when, as you said, you have a moat. Once you're confident, you are not scared of, what will the publication tell me? When you're confident of the product, you go wild. And Karp looked like prophetic, as you mentioned, because every time he speaks about something, it is only a matter of time before that happens. Typically 6 months, 1 year. He understands the dynamics. So I think what makes Karp is the confidence, but that comes from awareness. He is aware of the state of art. And since I think also, this relates also to us, I think we are this confident on Palantir because we have looked at it from the eyes of outsiders.
Yep.
And Karp is an outsider in tech. So imagine how little credibility people gave him when he started.
That's a really big deal, dude. When the stock was $6, Arny and I were fucking drooling over his interviews, right? We were gushing over, whenever we got a new Karp interview, we were like, oh my God, Karp's talking, because the stock was $6. I was down a lot of money. I don't know how you have a better average than me, but I was down a lot of money. And I was just like, I know I'm down tens of thousands of dollars, but this guy sounds like he knows what he's fucking doing. So we were outsiders. We were not JP Morgan looking at the stock, which is why we got excited. So your argument is because Karp is an outsider to technology, outsider investors can resonate with him more than just like the average suit and tie.
Yes, that relates to Karp understanding tech better than tech people, paradoxically, because when you look at things from outside, and for instance, the reaction I got when I started understanding a little bit in the tech scene, before COVID, I previously never invested into a tech company. So I literally started studying SaaS with Palantir, understanding the logics. What is exactly in the tech B2B world? And I was embarrassed when you see the picture of how many useless B2B companies there are. Like literally, you want to try to understand, what are the players, what they actually do, and you are like bombarded from these 100,000 SaaS that all look the same, not differentiated. And I think Karp noticed something similar when he approached tech. It's like, a lot of people do tech, but this tech doesn't really matter. This doesn't make sense. And as an outsider with logic, typically you have that sense of, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
Does it make sense?
I agree. That makes sense. Chris here has in the chat says, Arny, do you think Palantir would develop a small to mid product market to compete like HubSpot? They launched in the lower ed and took over Equia, Marketo, and Paradox. So basically, do we think Palantir is going after the small business that is doing a couple $1 million in revenue that could benefit off Foundry, even if it's not the biggest restaurant in the world? Palantir 2483. Let's see today, folks. We'll be live for like another maybe 20, 30 minutes. We'll see if we can pump to $25.
I personally don't think Palantir now will need to make like a dedicated product for smaller companies. I think more their go-to-market is we build the product, we want to deploy our relatively small sales force into getting the most important clients we potentially can get, so the biggest corporations for every sector, and then let the consulting partners, so the Accenture, the AWS, the Oracle, which we made a partnership very like a few weeks ago, them to take care of the relationships with these smaller companies. Because at the end of the day, regardless of is the company very big or very small, Palantir wants to solve the use case. So the same use case is essentially a matter of the input you put in. And obviously, for bigger companies, the input can be more complex. There are more inputs, but the use case, the structure is the same. I'm thinking, for instance, of AAP for digital marketing, digital marketing campaign optimizations. Like that stuff can be deployed from a relatively small company also to a huge company, also to Palantir itself. What changes is the data set, how that thing connects with all the other workflows. So it is more a matter of dealing with complexity. And I think Palantir just want to deploy the efforts into building products, which is what they're very good at, and the marginal effort into getting those customers that are big enough where you really want to have like the personal relationship, so not the relationship intermediated by a consulting company, which can pay you like directly.
Yes, Arny. All right, so I might have to do the one share. You guys know on the channel we always buy one share when the thing is really close to a new pot. So we're at $24.98. We're gonna buy it right now. We're gonna do it. We bought it right now. Let's see if we get the one share to 25. Michael Wilder, hello. What's up in the chat? We just bought one share of Palantir at $24.97. Let's see if we do. If you're an OG of the channel, the one share usually,
99.
can we do it? Can Arny ring the bell? Can he ring it? Can he? We get one more fucking cent, dude. One more cent. Let's go. One more cent. Don't give me blue balls here, Palantir. Do not give me blue balls here. 1 cent. Come on, bro. Come on. We're getting ready, dude. Dude, these fucking market makers, dude. Come on.
What is Citadel?
These mother effers, dude. It's when it breaks through, it's gonna break through.
Someone saw it, but we didn't.
There we go. Let's go. 25 Dolores, 2504, 2505, baby. This is what I'm talking, guys. You know, I don't brag. I'm not. You guys know I don't brag. But the one share is the one share. Okay, if you're part of the channel, you know the one share when it's on the edge. It gives a little push, a little push over the edge. So every time someone needs some help, we give it a little help when it's there. 2507, Arny. I don't think we've been at 25 since. Let's see. Last time we were at 25 was
Happened today, isn't it? Like also at the macro level, like this is
March 27th. And March 27th, March 27th, 2504. March 27th. There you go. 2506.
Well, the higher the price, the higher the implied expectations. So we need to be very careful. We need to be aware that.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on Palantir getting this 7% pump before earnings? I mean, we just added $5 billion in market cap. Do you like that as an investor, or are you a little scared of that?
Well, I'm almost all in, so how can I be sad?
That's true.
But I would say, short-term speaking, we need to be aware. Like 7% is already a pump that, if it happened after the earnings, we will be already super excited. Which means to get people more excited now, the earnings will need to be really, really, really good.
Yeah, guys, it was one share. For those that had to buy $1 one share, it was.
But just for context, I think it is worth underscoring. Last quarter, Palantir went up 30%. So I think many people are craving for something like that to happen again. And what's the way that many people can actually bet on something like that again to be like, oh, this is like a life-changing money. I don't encourage to say to do that, but like from a speculator, I think many people are now just buying calls because they say, okay, if they go and Palantir plugs a result that is in line with Q4, maybe there are chances of this 20-30% gap that makes options be crazy valuable.
Yep.
And if earnings suck, options goes to zero. So it's like, or very much.
Well, here's the thing. We know earnings are not going to suck. We all can agree with that. The question is, how strong is it? I mean, we saw this with Coinbase. Coinbase pumped 10%, then it fell on earnings, even though it had good earnings. So being up during the day maybe is not the best. But if earnings are that good, we know the liquidity for Palantir is more than most stocks.
Look, I think now the stock is rising for a technical reason.
Yes.
Because you need to think when there is a lot of call option activity, meaning a lot of people buying calls, you have a natural buying pressure on the stock.
Right.
Because once you buy call, the banks that let you write those calls have an opposite position compared with you. Right. So you buy the call, the bank that makes you underscore that call has a short position into that call.
Correct.
And the way banks work, they need to hedge that risk because they only want to make the fee as a market maker from the transaction of making the option transfer work. So since banks are short calls when make you underwrite that call, they need to buy shares to actually offset the market risk. That's something that happened during the pandemic very clearly when SoftBank, Masa, essentially bought so many NASDAQ options that he moved the market because all the banks needed to buy shares to offset the risks of these calls. So I think now we are seeing a lot of buying activity on the calls that make even more people thinking, oh, maybe I should just buy calls to be exposed to that.
I agree. Let's talk about the defense angle for Palantir. So here's a clip, Palantir 2493 right now. I just asked everyone who has calls. It seems like a lot of you guys have calls. Yeah, I don't have any calls. I don't have any options. Vince says I bought calls on the last red day. I'm already up 150% thinking about selling now. Look, guys, one thing I'll say about options. Options are not a joke. If you have short-term options and they're not leaps and they're going to expire in a couple weeks and you're like, if your calls are, Vince, like if you're up 150%, you won, dude. Like, I don't know if you want 200, 300%. You won the game. If you're up today because Palantir pumped 7%, whoever is giving you the fucking liquidity, if it's short-term options and they're not leaps, I personally would take the liquidity because it's not easy to get out of call options when they're short-term. So, yeah, Lev right here. I just sold 80% of my calls. Dude, if you were smart enough to buy calls at $20, $21, and we pumped before we got the numbers, we're pumping for, as Arny said, technical reasons. It's almost like free money. You're getting the money. Could you be up another couple 100%? Maybe, but it's not worth the risk in my opinion. Let's talk about the defense perspective. So here's Karp talking about where they're going in the world of defense. And then I want to get some thoughts from you, Arny, on what Palantir will be in the future when it comes to defense contracting.
Commonality. America needs to establish dominance on the battlefield. Maven, what's publicly known about Maven, is one of these projects that actually took what America's the best at in the world, software, and put it in the hands of our warfighter. By the way, at enormous cost. You're sitting in Palo Alto. I had people protesting here, hundreds, putting up chains in front of our office, calling us Nazis because we were dedicated to serving the American people, because we had the sense God gave a goat, and we realized that if you're going to do really important things in this country, you should defend this country with every asset we have. And what really happened on the Silicon Valley side is that you got, because of that success, because of the power of it, and quite frankly, because of our success, people realize this is a place where you should invest and make America even stronger. And what happened is you got a whole ecosystem of defense startups and an ecosystem of people inside the Pentagon who are ready to embrace that are doing things, by the way, that are very similar to what's happening in the commercial space.
Arny, how do you think the government business either accelerates or maybe stays flat this quarter? And then where do you think the government business is growing overall over the next couple of years?
Well, we know that the government revenues are lumpy by nature, which means, or maybe we get a lot of big deals, or maybe we have like a stagnating period, and we can't really predict that. That's the issue with the government. But overall, the trend is positive, and the way we can assess how things are really working is asking, is Palantir influence increasing by the day or not? And I think we have plenty of evidence that the influence Palantir is having in the international sphere is increasing dramatically. On one side, in the US, we know that the Pentagon is willing to invest in AI, and there are not many AI companies out there already having worked with the government for 20 years. In the international side, the clip we shared previously, Karp has been saying, guys, be careful because the risks are way higher than they look. And he said that already like before Russia invading Ukraine. And now he's reiterating, be careful because the risks of terror attacks are way higher. So you need probably a wake-up call because it is when there is the true moment of need that you can't say, oh, now I build software. No, everything needs to be ready and everything needs to be proven. And what Palantir is doing is essentially building on top of his reputation to actually allow other companies to enter the space by using the Palantir infrastructure they built for 20 years. So you have the infrastructure that has been already proven, it works, and Palantir is opening up that to other companies with, in a way, like AWS. Palantir is now having this Palantir for government solutions. Essentially, you are a startup working in tech, but you want to leverage that tech for the government side, and you're scared. There's the valley of death if you have a product.
How big do you think the NATO business becomes over the next decade?
I think I'm aligned with Emir, who shares the idea that the government...
Shout out to Amir in the chat as well. What's up, Amir?
That the government side should not be undertaken. Like that thing alone seems already mature, done. But the reality is that there is so much space to collect revenues from governments that are not fully embraced with Palantir. Think also the UK. Like, what's the real contribution from the UK compared with the total potential?
Right.
And that you have Italy, you have Spain, you have Germany. Germany alone is a huge country. If you can solve big problems for them, you'll not only get more influence on the government side, getting more bigger deals on the defense side, and think like Palantir has just became the first software prime. We just got Titan, which is like the opening contract.
It's a big deal.
Opening the door for potentially an insane amount of big deals.
So let me ask you this question here. Karp said, as someone says in the chat, Karp said, we could potentially become 20 times bigger over the next 10 years. Salesforce has a market cap of 250. Oracle, I think, is at 300. Trillion-dollar companies are Microsoft, Amazon. No, not Amazon. Is Amazon trillion? No, yeah, Amazon's trillion. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, and Tesla was once $1 trillion, and NVIDIA. Saudi Aramco, right? Like B2B, Salesforce, ServiceNow, those companies, Snowflake, they don't really get to $1 trillion. Does Palantir have a chance to get to $1 trillion?
I think it is the only one actually getting to 1 trillion in a reasonable amount of time. Like eventually one day when inflation will be super high, there will be like a lot of 1 trillion company, and we will.
When I can wipe my ass with $1 trillion, like, yeah, like, no, but okay. So when you say that, there's some people watching who might think this Italian dude is fucking crazy for thinking this B2B company can go to $1 trillion. But you were also crazy buying it at $6. So why are you not crazy for thinking it has a chance to go to $1 trillion?
Well, the reasoning is simple. Like, Salesforce, it is a great company because they opened up a new market and they were very good at executing. But then you can see that their organic motion start vanishing away. So what they did, now they are like a $300 billion market cap or so.
Roundabout, yeah.
So they are very big, but they got there by using a lot of M&A.
That's true. They bought Slack for $40 billion. That's true.
They bought Tableau. They bought a lot of stuff. So eventually they got there, but how you get there really matters, because if you grow but not grow well, eventually you create a structure that is also difficult to manage, and that makes you more vulnerable potentially to competitive pressures.
Right.
What is really doing well now is ServiceNow, which is way smaller, around 100 billion, something like that.
That's their market cap, 100 billion. Wow, they're 150 billion.
So you see, if a ServiceNow is 150 billion and it's true that Palantir is superior, I don't see any reason why Palantir should not get there over time, obviously with the results. But there's a catch. Palantir's offering is way better, is both wider and deeper. What ServiceNow does is essentially a platform that can be used essentially for all companies, while what Palantir does is potentially everything.
Right.
With everything, I mean helping you with accounting, helping you with marketing, helping you with AI clinical trials, helping you with manufacturing a fucking Ferrari.
I mean, that's why I invested in 2021. I didn't really understand them, but I felt like they were everywhere, and that was enough for me to get excited.
And the government is like every piece of the government.
Yeah.
So it's like the only difference from now and potentially getting to this 1 trillion is actually getting the clients to use the product, sell, and Palantir to sell the software. There is not like already from a product perspective, put it this way, already with the products that Palantir has right now with AIP potentially alone, just by increasing the number of customers, Palantir could get there, given the depth of use cases Palantir AIP solves.
Right.
This is not a CRM. This is not a ERP. This is a software that builds software. Potentially every software you can need.
Yeah, it just seems like the network effects on those are going to be, and if those network effects are as substantial as we think they are, then this is not going to be
because
a
look,
small business.
all these software companies have some sort of network effect. There is even like a very, very old, like a 20-year-old video on YouTube of Salesforce network effects. Okay, but they were like, oh, okay, nice. But with Palantir, we reached the point where clients are so happy they essentially pitch Palantir to their suppliers.
Dude, that's a big deal. Like, it's not easy to have your own clients recommend your own shit to other people and for them to realistically buy into that, because Palantir doesn't have a big sales force, right? So they need their clients to get them other clients. And it seems like that's what's happening.
It's even costly software. It's not, oh, come on, it's for free.
Yeah, it's not a free trial like that. It's very tough to be able to sell this type of software. Here's Carp back in 2022 talking about the stock price when we were at $6.
Companies obsess over their share price, and the last year or so, share prices in tech companies have come down. Are you obsessed with your share price, or you don't care that much?
I guess I'm supposed to say
You do care.
I do. Well, I care
You're
because
one of the biggest shareholders, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, look, the answer that like I care because the people who work at Palantir care. I do actually care about our shareholders. I actually especially care about the retail shareholders, the small shareholders. But I've been at this 20 years. I know that, like, you know, when we DPO'd with 700, I think, and 40 million in revenue, and during that, roughly in that phase next year, we ended up with $100 billion valuations. Like, and as I recently said, I didn't think, luckily I come from a family where I'm at the small table because I'm not an academic. I never thought I was at that good at 45. I don't think I'm that bad at 6. I know how well the company's doing. It's funny, as someone who's been somewhat skeptical of the free market in many ways as a proud progressive and believes that we need to ameliorate the free market by having world-class education and helping people who've been underprivileged. Medium long-term, I have enormous faith in our clients, in this case, our shareholders, to figure out if it's working or not. I know we built the product. I built our company as a product that will do very well under these conditions. So I'm obsessed about our company. Do I obsess about the share price every day? No, of course not.
I think, dude, like, I don't know how much better of an answer you could ask for. You got the CEO who, like, and at $6, dude, we were feeling it. All of us were feeling it. You know, unless you got in at $6, which congrats to you. But if you didn't have the privilege of doing that, you were feeling it. And so at that time, I remember watching him say that. And when he said, I don't think we're as bad as the market is telling us at 6. I don't think we were as good as the market was telling us at 45. It means he's objective on what the company's value proposition is in approximation to its market cap. And He's saying that he's obsessed about the company, and we've seen it play out. If you're obsessed about the product, and with AIP, they are literally obsessed about giving that product away to get people hooked onto it and then figuring out monetization. It's been 18 months since the strategy has been deployed. I think monetization has been relatively figured out, and it will continue to scale over the coming quarters. Then you're going to win. And Snowflake's not doing that shit. Databricks not doing it. None of these guys are doing it. They have to focus on how do I sell, get the contract, then give the value, or do I replicate the bootcamp strategy? What were your thoughts when you heard him say that back in 2022? Because I'm sure you remember that as well.
Well, essentially, he spoke about asymmetries, which is what we really crave for as investors. It was an asymmetry on the negative side when the stock was at 45. It was a asymmetry on the positive side for the investor when it was 6, because the company was not that bad as the market perceived. And who saw that, as us, had the exciting opportunity to actually exploit this asymmetry. But that is really related to what we mentioned previously. Karp is this way because he's aware. Like, people criticize Karp for being a philosopher, but philosophers are aware. He's aware of the reality, and the way he speaks about this reality matches what he sees. Now, what we were talking about, like, sorry, I got...
The stock price. You just had your first moment of forgetting what the fuck you're saying on stage. Trust me, these guys know in the chat, I have that moment every single day. But the way I figure out how to deal with that situation is I make a joke and they laugh and they forget that I lost my train of thought. So, and they'll vouch for me in the chat, right, guys? The stock at 6 versus the stock at 45. And Karp basically saying, I don't think I'm that good. I don't think I'm that bad. What were your thoughts?
Well, that's just awareness from him side. Like, what do you think he thinks now?
I think he thinks they're going to the fucking moon at this point. Because the reason I think Karp's excited now about Palantir, guys, is because Karp basically figured out, and this is the thing, I want to make this point, and I want everyone to remember this one point from this live stream. Like, this is the biggest point I want to make about Palantir. This was a company that could not sell 2 years ago. They could not sell. Somehow, the company that could not sell, this is why I get more excited about the company every day, figured out how to sell in a world in which if you don't do the steak dinners, if you don't do the PowerPoints, if you don't do the networking, you cannot sell software. We're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. You don't do that without a sales force like Snowflake that gives 53% of their stock-based compensation to their salespeople in general for sales and marketing. So the biggest bull case I have on Palantir right now, regardless of the price, is that this is a company that did not know how to sell. They figured it out. We literally saw a company that was 20 years old in real time, in 18 months, figure out boot camps. Like, what the hell is a boot camp? They figured out boot camps. They're scaling it to 5 a day. They have engineers all across the world deploying this stuff. And now it's a question about customer conversion. But I think the biggest thing I've learned over the past 90 days is that a company figuring out not how to sell and then figuring out how to sell and then scaling that. And if it actually results in reoccurring revenues that are growing at 25 to 30%, I mean, this is going to be one of the coolest stories over the next couple of years because companies don't figure that out. They have to acquire. They don't know how to do that.
Well, talking about awareness, I think now we have this awareness, and I think our awareness was a little bit biased in 2021, 22, because I think it is fair to say in hindsight that probably we underestimated the problems that we're having with sales.
Correct.
Why? I think we were aware on the right side positively that the product they built is essential, is valuable, and once deployed, it can really unlock a lot of value. We have a lot of evidence that this is not a scam company, not a scam product, but I think we believed the mission was right, and we were right in assessing this company. These guys are smart, will figure their way out. I think we underestimated. Okay, now there is a sales problem. I think the bears on there, like also Chris, I think he was right in saying they're good, but not good enough.
Honestly, it was 50-50. When they were struggling with sales at $8, I mean, I kept my shares, but it felt like, dude, I might take an L on this one, you know? And they figured it out. And it's not easy, dude. It's not easy to figure this shit out. And they did.
And I think now he has the awareness of people are realizing we are valuable. I think Karp still thinks people still have an idea how valuable we are.
Yeah.
Because think this way, like we started this part talking about the divergences, the asymmetry between what the stock was seeing, what the reality CARP was seeing. There was a discrepancy at 45 and there was a discrepancy at 6. But now, what do you think we understand? We as shareholders who have been here for 4 years, we have these 4 years of accumulated knowledge over time. What do you think we understand that the market overall doesn't understand?
So I think there's two things. I think number one, the market's too obsessed with models, not with AI infrastructure. So Snowflake and their Arctic LLM, I don't know. I don't know if that actually takes off. And I've talked to a lot of data scientists over the past couple of weeks, been like, do I not get it? Is this a Snowflake thing? Or they're like, no, dude, it's another fucking model. It will help them grow. I don't know if it's the answer to some of their AI problems. The Databricks CEO had some really harsh words for Snowflake over the past couple of days in regards to them not being an AI company. So I think the market cares too much about the models, which is why OpenAI has an $80 billion valuation. That's probably justified because they're the best model, but still. Number two, I think the market still doesn't understand how big the government business is going to be. JADC2, there's going to be tens of billions of dollars poured into AI. We beat Raytheon, bro. Anduril just beat Boeing and Lockheed or Northrop Grumman for one of their contracts. So the DoD is basically like, yeah, we're going to embrace the software companies because we need software to win, not just the traditional hardware companies. And it makes sense. Raytheon is not going to, Raytheon's not going to beat Palantir at software. So if we continue to get that cash from the government, that's just going to stack higher and higher into the tunes of tens of billions over the next decade, plus the commercial side is more about infrastructure versus models. And I'm sure Palantir has products CARP's been talking about that are behind the scenes that they haven't even unveiled yet. Then maybe the market's just not pricing that in yet. And if that's the case, it'll be exciting.
Absolutely. It's like now the market is seeing a good company, but these factors that you mentioned, the market is now focused on models, but the true value will accrue, as Karp mentioned the last year. So at the beginning of this AI saga, the true value intersection between the ability to use the models, your morals, and the business logics, essentially the AI infrastructure, which is exactly what Palantir does. Then you have the government side, which is becoming so much more relevant with the opening the door of Palantir becoming a software prime. It means that Palantir becomes the reference for everything that is software related that needs to be deployed. We are not in a peaceful time. And third, I would say probably is the one most connected also to the stock price because it is connected to the financials. I personally think people believe Palantir can have a lot of growth for a long time. I personally think the market underestimates the durability of this growth.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
There is this normal idea that the bigger you grow, the more difficult it is for you to grow,
right?
Which is true, but is partly true. Because if that was the truth as it, you would not have the big tech actually growing more at 2 billion, 3 billion more than a Coca-Cola.
Right.
Okay. There would be like a normal decay in growth, and that's it. Here with software, magic happens. Like software defies the force of gravity. And that is partly due to network effects. What Palantir is really set to benefit from are these network effects that we were talking about. Clients suggesting other clients, but also all the synergies where you have multiple partners interacting with each other. So since Palantir can be seen as software to build software into any vertical, potentially everywhere, it is true that the more clients have Palantir, the more network effects, the more you can build at scale. So why Meta, Google, well, more importantly, why Meta can still grow this much? Because the network effects are so powerful, and so far, no enterprise software has built a very powerful network effects into the enterprise sector. Palantir is the only one who does something like this.
Let's end on this. I want to ask you a couple more questions about some other stocks, but let's do last final question on Palantir. What's the bear case? How does this earnings go really bad? We're going to be live at 3:30, guys. How do we go live and we have a little bit of a sad face because what has to go bad for this stock to get to $20, $19 after hours?
Maybe rather just everything in line with the guidance.
So they don't beat, they come in line, but they don't beat expectations.
I mean, if they just beat the guidance for 1% and the guidance for the next quarter is just tepid, like not exciting, that would be enough to crush the stock.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe that could be just a delay due to, okay, you make a shitload of boot camps and it just takes time to become deals, which would be not a structural problem, yet it would be a temporary problem for the stock. I personally think the management wants to take care of the narrative right now. I think they realized how difficult it is to manage the narratives, because when they went listed, Carp being, we are growing 30%. It's like, I think he regrets being that way. But on the other hand, they went DPO. So they were not really trained by bankers into how to manage expectations. Now they learned the hard way how to deal with expectations.
Yep.
And we need to also remember that the management is very committed to the company, and neither the management really wants the stock to be low, because if you need to pay a lot of stock-based compensation, with the stock being high, you can give the same amount of dollars, which impacts in number of shares way less. So you need to avoid a negative feedback loop. You need to control the narrative. And I think now the management is in a position where it is confident. They know they can be confident in a natural way. They don't need to lie, to scam people like some other CEOs.
Arny's coming for everyone's throat. All right, so my Mac's about to run out of battery, so we got to end it here and get out of here. Arny, dude, there's 1,700 people watching an Indian and an Italian guy talk about Palantir. We're not from JP Morgan. We're not from BlackRock. We're not from Bank of America. And it seems like people have appreciated our content over the past couple of years. You guys know I deeply, deeply appreciate you guys joining every morning, and happy that you guys get value from the content. How has this journey been like for you over the past couple of years? You used to be a financial analyst, then you turned to be a social media creator, develop your own audience. People kind of care about your thoughts about Palantir because you have some of the best Palantir content in the world. How's the journey been for you?
Weird is probably the right word. I went from being confident in my skill as an analyst to being completely demoralized on I can't get a job into a hedge fund. People don't want me, and it's so good to make a living by essentially making hedge funds cry by being right. And sharing this journey with you, man, is absolutely fantastic.
It's been fun. At the end of the day, all of this, I mean, this the thing about Charlie that the first clip, for those that didn't see, if you just rewind the market open, Charlie Munger passed away a couple months back, and Buffett, while he was on the shareholder meeting, he said, "Over to you, Charlie," because he's done the meeting with Charlie so many times. Unfortunately, obviously, Charlie is not there, and everyone started clapping because they recognized how valuable friendship is in this journey. That's it. Friendship is everything at the end of the day. Whether the stock goes up or down, the relationship that we build with people, the fact that Arny and I believe are going to be friends for life now because we bonded over the internet and now we're here in person, it just matters more than everything else. And the cool thing about this community is we are attached to a company that I think all of us can believe can become very special. Today is one more quarter, one more 90-day update in the next 190-day updates we're going to get over the coming years. But it's one of those updates where we're getting to see them at a very small stage. And if they can execute and our money is helping them execute as shareholders, then not only will we make money, not only will we make friendships and relationships that will last for a lifetime, but we will get to see a company that we all really believe in continue to execute. And the other final thing I'll say is that most people in the world don't invest. Most people don't invest. They don't put their money and they don't put it to work. They don't put it to use. They don't let it compound. All of us are already winning in my head because we're taking a chance on a company. Whether it works or not, we'll see. I think it will work over the long term. But we're all winning because we're all doing the thing that most people don't do, giving ourselves a chance at financial freedom to have a better opportunity for all of our lives. So
I mean, there's nothing better than having a conviction into something and share the journey with someone who understands and wants to really like build a journey together. And if by doing this, we also make money, which is the case, I mean, perfect combo.
Yeah. Really exciting stuff. Thank you all for being here today. It means the absolute world to us. We will be live. Got to bang on the table. 3:30 p.m. Today is our Super Bowl. Palantir earnings. Stock was at $6 2 years ago. No one believed in us. We started this community. You guys have joined, participated in this community. Arny, myself, Sachin. I mean, there's Amir. There's so many names. Vince. There's a million names I'm forgetting right now. But all of these people have contributed valuable content to this community. Best community on the internet. I think a little bit less delusional of a community than Tesla. Going to throw a little shade at the Tesla community. I love Tesla, but we're a little bit more objective than these guys. And I think we have a CEO that's just as exciting as Elon Musk, and that's why this is a really, really fun journey to be here. Are you guys going sightseeing? Well, we're going to scope out the. So we're at a conference for Palantir. They're having an expo, and we're going to go meet some of the Palantir people right now and go look at the expo because we're doing a podcast there tomorrow. So. Yeah, but we have to be back soon. We have to be back in a few hours for earnings, so not too much sightseeing today.
So if you are in DC, the expo is open. The event is tomorrow and the day after. So I think the registration are still open.
Yeah, if you're in DC, hit us up. Email me amit@dailypalantir.com. And if you're at DC, then we'll have a decent amount of free time tomorrow, like during the day. So, or even today. Today's going to be a little tight, but tomorrow. Yeah, hit us up and... yeah, just come say hi to us. We'll be at the expo because it's open to anyone. Anyone can come through. All right, that's it. We will see you guys 3:30 p.m. and we'll see what happens in the world of Palantir. Thank you, everybody. Love you guys. See you at 3:30 p.m. Arny's Twitter is in the description. Make sure to follow. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good one.